Hello and welcome to episode 209 of Super Switch Headz, the premier Nintendo podcast on all of the internet. My name is Patrick Nicely.
And my name is David Howe.
And it's just the two of us. We're doing another two-person episode.
Yeah. In pretty quick succession from the last one. That was not really anticipated.
We're going to be doing an episode about my game, Monochrome Heights. I am excited about this. Thank you to David for suggesting it and being willing to do it.
Oh, yeah.
I'll save pontificating about that later. We also got some news to talk about. We are recording early this week. That's part of the reason we're just doing the two of us. And so there might be some big news drops early in the week that we'll miss, but we'll cover them next time. But what we are going to be talking about is some early sales numbers for Tears of the Kingdom, some new GBA games coming to NSO, an upcoming Splatoon season, and more. But before we get into any of that, as we like to do, how are you doing this week, David? You holding up?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. Lots going on in the old life. I'm excited to do this episode, though. I think, we love doing developer interviews. It just so happens you can interview yourself. Congrats, you interviewed yourself. But yeah, we promise we're not just gonna do me and Patrick episodes for the rest of time.
Right. Yeah.
We talked about this a little bit ago. There's like a lot kind of going on in this month and into June, so the episodes might get a little wonky in this area, and then we'll kind of smooth out once we get a little further into the summer. But I'm excited. I feel like we just spoke the other day, but
because we're recording so early.
Yeah, I feel like I talked to you last week and the week before that.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like every week.
Yeah. No, but a lot's happened since then. Some of you might know I made a film a while ago called The Woo. Yes. Which was about a building here in Austin called the Good Old Wooten. The Good Old Wooten has been demolished. Like, it is now rubble. Like, over the course of the past 2 months, they've been bringing it down, basically. They've been scooping it out with cranes. And so I actually went last night to a candlelight vigil memorial for the Woo, and we all stood outside. It was a bunch of people that used to live there, and we all stood outside with candles and shared stories about living there. And it was there's a whole bunch of fucking weirdos that lived there, so it was really fun to just hang out with all those strange folk that we all have that weird thing in common, that we lived in this bizarre place. So that was fun. And then as far as health stuff is concerned, Monday I'm going to Sasha's funeral, which is part of the reason why we're recording early this week. I'm not sure exactly when I'll be back from that, so we wanted to make sure we had enough time to do an episode.
Right.
And so I got that going on, and then I do have a surgery scheduled as well. If anybody's been following my health journey.
Yeah.
It's basically next week is the funeral, and then I'm getting an MRI and a PET scan to see if there's anything else in my body. Hopefully that comes out clean, fingers crossed. And then the following week is when I have my surgery, and they're going to be taking off a little chunk of my scalp about that big, making sure there's no other cancers or melanoma in that area. And hopefully, if that goes well, they replace it with some other skin, I imagine. I don't think it's just going to be skull up there.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's going to be weird. So there'll be a little bit of recovery. But hopefully that's a one and done. And I'm looking forward to finally having all that kind of indie past, as it were. What about you, Patrick? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I don't know that I want to get into the specifics of it, but been sent some work, some contract work from my old job, and that's been good because it's kind of easy to fall back into, and it's money that I need. And they seem keen on me doing it. So
okay, nice. Is it like riding a bike? Are you you're not trying to use Unity code to do your job?
No, I'd say it's like riding a bike for sure, or at least a little bit. And for now, at least, it's the kind of work that I like to do. I mean, to the extent that you like doing work for, you know what I mean? So that's been good. And then I've talked to somebody about doing some work for them. I don't know. I just feel like one of these many things that I kind of am doing is going to pan out, if not, or multiple of them in small ways. And so that's been good. again, without getting into too many specifics. So,
well, yeah, you gotta have money to eat food and have shelter. Yeah.
So, pretty good week, actually.
Good. Glad to hear it.
And I'm really glad we're doing this episode about this game because I am like been a little pulled in a bunch of different directions. And this, I think talking about this is going to be good. But
yeah, I'm feeling a bit of that too. Like at the Woo Memorial last night, it was actually kind of weird. Like these two women showed up and nobody really recognized them, and they thought maybe they just walked upon it and like found it and just stuck around.
Right.
And then afterwards, because I brought a bunch of Woo posters, and I was like, hey, because I had a whole bunch left over. They're really nice screen printed posters. I'm giving them to people that live there. And afterwards, they came up to me and they're like, hey, can we have a poster? And I was like, yeah, did you live there? And they're like, no, but we're just like big fans of your movie.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Awesome.
They like someone showed them the movie a couple of years ago and they really liked it and they got fascinated with the place and joined the like Facebook group around the Woo and then saw that we were doing that and came. And so I was like, damn, that was cool.
That is
and
cool.
That got me really thinking again about like, working on some more creative stuff outside of work. And I might try to flex some of those muscles again. It's been a while for me. You're inspiring me by working on personal projects.
Well, we'll get into it. But I wouldn't be here without you and honestly this community. But I'll try to remember to say that.
We're gonna save the circle jerk for after the show.
It's already started. All right. Real briefly, we'll get into some shout outs. So last week we did an episode on Tears of the Kingdom. So over on the YouTube, Krakow said, this game makes me feel like a genius and an idiot in the best way. Most certainly, I feel that way too. Like, God, I have done some really stupid stuff and then watched my son complete a shrine in like 2 seconds and been like, oh, that's the way you're supposed to do that. Not use every ability in succession while you're in midair like I did. And then other times I'm like, I figured it out. I'm smart. Anyway, Kari asked, do you think it's necessary to play Breath of the Wild first, or can someone just jump right in with Tears of the Kingdom?
That's a really good question. What do you think about that,
I think you
Patrick?
jump right in with Tears of the Kingdom. I'm kind of a big fan of that overall. Like I always believe, like if you're like, man, I want to play a blank game in a series, usually the most recent one has the best quality of life stuff. You know what I mean? Like now, if you're asking, like, I want to go play, should I play Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3, or 4 or something? Right. That's a different question, but like, I don't know. I would say just jump into Tears of the Kingdom because I don't think, it's not like the story from Breath of the Wild plays that much of a fact into it. And in some ways it almost feels confusing. Like where is all the stuff from that game? And you know what I mean? Like,
I think I like agree with you. I like pretty much agree with you. Cause I'm kind of torn on this question. I think Kari, either way, you probably could just jump into Tears of Kingdom. Everybody's playing that game right now, so it would probably be good. My only sticking point on that is that Breath of the Wild is also an incredible game.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to play it after Tears of the Kingdom, it would feel like a big step down. You know what I mean? And so I think like, if you don't really care about being a part of the cultural zeitgeist right now, and kind of like being in the conversation with your friends or whatever, which is a really fun, that was a fun part of Breath of the Wild, and it's a fun part of this game right now.
For sure.
Then, if you really just, if you want to have twice as much game, I would say if you are eventually going to play both, maybe Breath of the Wild is the first one to go with.
That's a good point. I think when somebody asks this question, I always take it to mean if I'm going to play one game, you know what I mean? Like,
will I be lost with the story or something?
Yeah, or will I be lost with the story? Because I think if you're hesitating, that means your time value or something, right? Because like playing both of these games to even like to satisfaction is going to take you, a good chunk of time. And that's where I'm like, if you're asking because time is an issue, then definitely jump right in. But I think you have a good point, David, that if you're like, I've got 500 hours to spend on some video games, which one should I do it on? Then maybe both. Right. And start with the first. Yeah.
But like Breath of the Wild is a 10 out of 10 game as well. And it's just Tears of the Kingdom is like 11 out of 10, so it's like, it's hard to go wrong with either. If you really just want to do the one, then yeah, definitely Tears of the Kingdom is going to be a fine experience, and just watch a YouTube video summarizing Breath of the Wild.
If Nintendo put one out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then Matt Hobby said release the original artwork, and we replied no, which is a Discord in joke. So we will stop with the YouTube comments.
You want to understand the Discord in jokes? Join the Discord.
Join the Discord, right? But over on the Discord, we got some comments as well. We got a nice comment from Ty Typos, kind of deciding whether or not they should listen to our episode, and then they did. And just the game blowing their mind with how good it is, and the visuals, the sound design. Nice long comment there, but the sound design of this game really is great.
It's incredible, yeah.
Man, have you heard the Gleeok music? Have you ran into a Gleeok?
I have, yeah.
Dude, I love that track.
I have, and then I died immediately, and then respawned right next to it, and then ran away.
Yeah. Pause and listen to the music.
Okay, I will.
I love that track. I'm maybe it's just me, but everybody else hates it.
It's kind of jazzy, right?
It's like really like bizarre. It's very, the rhythms and the like. I think it's really unsettling, but I really like it.
Yeah.
And then we got a nice comment from Cena, who was responding to Ali's comment about the stamina bar. And I think their point is right, that when you, from Breath of the Wild, I would like tap B to run, but now like the first bit takes more off. So it's better to hold than tap. It's hard to break that habit, but yeah.
I now have a full 2 stamina bars, and I do not regret it.
Yeah, I can see that.
I get one shot a lot by like stone taluses and shit, but I'm getting better at like using recall to like send their rocks back at them anyway, which is helping. Yeah. And you can ascend through a stone talus. I don't know if
I haven't tried that.
Yeah.
I always forget about ascend. That's another time I feel like an idiot. Sometimes I'll like start climbing a mountain and be like, I could have just ascended right here.
I'm getting a lot better with all of my abilities, like remembering to use them.
I'm getting better at it too, but
yeah.
We got a nice long comment from other Dylan over on the Discord too. Commenting on the start of the game and how great that was. And I like this comment they made, which is that the color of the trees kind of invokes autumn up in the sky, I should say, which is where you start. And then that does kind of make it feel like a new season or like a change of time. And I think that's a good point. And that was smart of them to do. And it also just makes it feel different, that area from the rest of it. But, and there's a lot of other things they said, and some other folks commented as well, but in the interest of time, I think those were the big ones.
That concludes our secret second Tears of the Kingdom episode.
We will resume it in 45 minutes.
I do wish I stopped playing to do this, and I am kind of irked, to be honest. I kind of
hate you and wish we weren't here.
This is the life we've decided to live.
Oh boy. Well, if you want to, be shouted out on the next episode, send us a comment, anything we say. We'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And then also, please remember to head on over to the YouTube page and watch our episodes there. If you want to see the video content, hit like and hit subscribe for us.
Yep.
And with that, we'll talk maybe a little bit more about Tears of the Kingdom in the news segment. First up, Nintendo put out a press release that within the first 3 days of Tears of the Kingdom being released, they made 10 million sales. It's a pretty big number. David, what do you think about that? Do you think that's like, going to be a big bulk of it because pre-orders and launch release, or do you think this game's going to like double that?
Yeah, I think it's going to have hella legs. I think like, the hype was already incredibly strong for it before it came out, right? So we knew it was going to sell really, really well. 10 million in 3 days, I think puts it as the fastest selling Nintendo first party game.
I think they said that.
Yeah. I don't know if we include Pokemon in that. I think that those maybe are, I don't know if those sold 10 million. Yeah. But either way, those are crazy numbers. This game, as we kind of predicted and expected, is blowing up on social media and TikTok. I see it everywhere. I mean, a lot of that is my algo, I'm sure. Right. But I think like, the creativity of the machines that people are making, the mechs,
Yeah.
fucking, I saw somebody make a 2-stage autonomous drone that basically it flies up in the air and then drops a second piece of it. And then there's a rolling auto drone on the ground and one in the air, and they both work together to destroy a camp while he's just like chilling and watching it happen. It's like shit like that is like going crazy, and like Korok torture is a whole subgenre of internet content now. So it's like, I think that kind of stuff is really blowing up with the younger generation. And I think that kind of stuff as well is going to get more and more people to be like, oh, I never even played Breath of the Wild, but this looks really cool. And all this really interesting shit is in it. I know a lot of people that have been interested in it that have never really played games before just because of the shit they've been seeing online. Right. So, I think this game's going to have legs. And then particularly if, we have a next generation Switch or a Switch successor that has backwards compatibility, can make this game shine even more than it already does. This could be a flagship game for, 5 years or so. I mean, look at, Breath of the Wild had incredibly long legs as well. So I would expect this game too as well.
That's fair. I think that was something I wanted to say on our our Tears of the Kingdom episode last week, but I forgot to say is that this game feels like it's having that cultural moment that's bigger than gaming. Yeah. And that's what you're kind of saying, David, right? Like, this feels like that, like, I don't know, a couple other games in recent history that have done that are like Untitled Goose Game and like
Animal Crossing
did it. Yeah. Where like even people who don't know much about video games, like it was like the front page of the New York Times or something had it, or you know what I mean? Yeah. Like an article about it and stuff like that. So
yeah, it's definitely, it's in the cultural zeitgeist right now. And I don't think that's going to go away for a while. I would anticipate we'll get even more milestone announcements from Nintendo on the sales of this. And it'd be interesting to see if this leads to an uptick in Switch units sold as well.
All right. Well, we'll move on to talk about the new GBA games that are coming to Nintendo Switch Online. Well, if you have the expansion pack. So I'll be honest, this stuff is Game Boy Advance stuff is just not stuff I'm familiar with. And then also these specific ones, like it's just weird naming conventions and stuff. So I'm going to lean on you, David, to help me understand this, but it's the Super Mario Advance games, right? There was already one on NSO. Yeah. And now we've got the rest of these. What is this?
So, I mean, this is honestly a pretty weird fucking drop. They've done this twice now with like Game Boy games. They did it too, where they were like, these games will be coming eventually as well. And then the next drop is none of the games that they talked about that are coming. You know what I mean? I guess we got that with Fusion already. Like they told us Metroid Fusion was coming, but they did not say that these games were coming. And it's also a weird drop because these games are all already on NSO in different forms, right? Like Super Mario Brothers 3, which is Super Mario Advance 4. Super Mario Brothers 3 is on in All-Stars on Super Nintendo. It's on the original NES. That made sense that started with that because that had all the e-reader levels and it was kind of like this
new
bigger, better package. These basically Super Mario Advance 1 through 3 are in this order: Super Mario Brothers 2, Super Mario World, and then Yoshi's Island. And then Super Mario Advance 4 was Super Mario Brothers 3. So these all have like little enhancements. They have like voice in them. Like Mario's like, just what I needed. Like when you grab a power up and shit. And like, and then they all have the Mario Brothers multiplayer game, which is super fun to play on NSO, by the way. I played that with a couple people and that was a blast. But yeah, it's just kind of weird that they went with this over like a ton of other Game Boy Advance games that have no other kind of representation on the system already.
You think it's the Mario movie? Like
probably, yeah. We're trying to
act like there's new Mario games to play.
Well, Mario movie just came out on digital platforms for purchase and rent, and so it's like, I think a lot of kids are probably, kids like to watch movies over and over again, so they're all probably kind of starved for Mario, so it makes sense to put these out, and they're widescreen or with the Game Boy Advance aspect ratio anyway, so it's like, they're definitely, this would be a great introduction to 2D Mario for kids that saw the Mario movie and maybe only played like the 3D Mario games, right? Mario Brothers 2 has that horrible side effect of being a GBA game where they made it a lot brighter to counteract the non-backlit screen. So like that game's kind of washed out, unfortunately, on Game Boy Advance. That's kind of my only gripe with this collection. But otherwise, these are some of the best ways to play these games. And I'll definitely play them again whenever they come out.
It's this week or the end of the week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's strange, but not bad.
Good. Mario World is like probably the best game of all time. So go play it if you haven't.
I definitely am interested to just see the slight upgrades on some of these. That's it for that. We'll talk about Splatoon 3 now. The new season has been announced. Splatoon 3's, I guess, what are we at? This will be the last new season, sizzle season. I can't think of it. I guess the summer. That's the word I was looking for. Starting on June 1st. I don't know. This looks pretty cool. There's some, as always, new weapons, new stages, a new salmon run stage, which I'm excited about. We're going to get another big run event. We're going to get some extra work. And then there's a new mode called challenges, right? Which is like different battle modes have different little conditions and stuff. Like there's going to be fog in Turf 4 for these challenges. I don't know, just some variety. Seems cool.
Yeah. Now, I just want to make sure you said this is the last one. There's going to be a whole another year of updates after this.
Yeah,
right?
I just meant like, I presume that once they will be I don't know. I guess I mean like in a year you have 4 seasons.
Right.
You know
I
what
see
I
what
mean?
you're saying.
Like, I don't know. Maybe they'll call the next fall season something different, but I don't know. We don't know yet, right? Because this is the first time they've done this season thing. So I just meant more like maybe the next time around it'll be sizzle season again. You know what I mean? Like
right.
Next summer.
Totally.
But I don't know. Maybe they'll come up with creative names.
I mean, we've definitely got at least 4 more seasons with 2 rounds, stages each. Yeah. Like this game will continue to get bigger, especially with the DLC and all that stuff. So, I've fallen off a little bit from Splatoon, and by a little bit, I mean kind of a lot, to be honest. I don't play nearly as much. I mean, now that Tears of the Kingdom is out, I'm really not touched it in a long ass time. But this is exciting. New stages is great. I loved all the stages from the last drop, and I'm excited to play more, and hopefully we get some more like little quality of life extras that they didn't even talk about here, like we did last time. That'd be really great too.
Yeah, I was just watching the trailer, and one of the special modes, I think it's tower control, has like extra jump. Is the challenge. It just looks pretty cool to see the Inklings jumping so high. So I think those little mix-ups will be cool.
I just got to that area of Tears of the Kingdom last night.
But I'm the same. I actually have not touched Splatoon. I have not touched anything since Tears of the Kingdom came out. That's all I've been playing. So yeah, but I think this stuff will bring me back to at least dip my toe back in.
Cool.
But we'll see.
Nice.
Moving on to Pokemon. Very strange thing that happened where the Pokemon company came out and said, hey, May 24th, you're going to be able to use your Pokemon Home with Scarlet and Violet. And then came back out and said, never mind. Sometime you will get to do that.
Yeah, that doesn't, I don't know what's going on at the Pokemon company, man. It's
So now there still is an update coming to Scarlet and Violet soon, but obviously that would be a Pokemon Home update. So I don't know.
I've lost faith. They've done many updates to that game, and none of it is fixed performance, and I have lost faith.
And here we are with Tears of the Kingdom not running flawlessly, right? The frame rate dips a little bit, but clearly a bigger, more complicated game.
I haven't seen a single bug in this game or any sort of crash or anything.
The closest I got to it is, those flying monsters that carry monsters. One of them got trapped in a really weird way that I didn't cause. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it was, I don't know that you could even really call it a bug. It just felt a little bit like, that looks weird. That shouldn't be happening. Yeah. But then it got out, or I shot it. You know what I mean? And we moved on. Like, and that's the closest thing. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it is like, I mean, Pokemon is in its own engine. I'm sure they've been using some form of that same engine for a long time. Tears of the Kingdom actually uses. It's not the Breath of the Wild engine. They rebuilt the game in. I forget what it's called, but it's the same engine that Splatoon 3 and Nintendo Switch Sports uses. Because those both use a lot of FSR as well. So maybe fucking somebody at Pokemon Company can learn how to use that engine because all three of those games run great.
Yeah. Well, not much else to say there. A couple other quick news items here. Grand Theft Auto 6 is not officially dated, right, David? But I think you're the one that can maybe better explain why it likely has a window of release now.
So Take-Two put out kind of a recent investor call or something like that, talking about their fiscal year 2025, which starts April 2024. And they were basically like, we're going to be making $8 billion in revenue this year, which makes everybody be like, what could possibly do that? And I think it's Grand Theft Auto 6, right? I mean, Grand Theft Auto 5 is still the highest selling game of all time. I'm pretty sure at least it's made the most money out of any game, and pretty much justifiably so. It's, crossed 3 generations of systems. It's a massive game. And up until Breath of the Wild, I would say it kind of defined the open world genre, right? So I think, whenever 6 comes out, I think it's gonna be another generation defining game, right? It'll be interesting to see in kind of a post Breath of the Wild world what they kind of do with it. You know what I mean? Because I think for me, it's
Can
like
you
Breath of the Wild,
climb all the
buildings?
Kingdom.
I mean, maybe I don't know, but it's like that. Like those, I feel like Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild have really kind of spoiled me on open world games where there's something to do everywhere. It really rewards exploration, which is what I always wanted GTA to be like, but never quite felt that way. It was really just like a shit ton of side quests, right? Not as much like emergent environmental gameplay and storytelling, right? So it'll be cool to see like what that does. But either way, this is basically soft confirmation that GTA 6 will be coming out next year, I think, unless it somehow goes into the beginning of 2025. But either way, I'm excited. Maybe we'll see it on the Switch too.
Maybe. A game that allegedly we will be seeing on the Switch that just got announced is Mortal Kombat 1. In what is another great numbering choice in this modern era where we don't like certain numbers. It would be 13 or no, it would be 12.
It'd be 12.
Right?
Yeah.
I guess.
I do not understand why it's called Mortal Kombat 1. I just don't get it.
Well, they put out a trailer and stated that it's going to come to the Switch. Do you think I mean, I guess it's a fighting game, so it's not like, I don't know. I just don't know how the Switch would handle. I mean,
Mortal Kombat 11 came to the Switch, right?
Yeah, but wasn't it sort of a not great experience and had some parts missing and stuff? I don't know. I want to like Mortal Kombat, but I am not. Like, I watched the trailer and I was like, oh, this looks cool. I like fighting games. And then they get to the part where you're ripping off people's faces. And I'm like, yeah, not anymore. Not for me.
That's funny.
No judgment if that's your thing, right? But it doesn't appeal to me anymore.
Yeah. I think it's nice to see that we're kind of like back into, I think we're kind of in a bit of a golden era of fighting games.
Yeah. Street Fighter 6 coming out.
Yeah, Street Fighter 6, Tekken 9 or 8 is coming out. I'm not really sure which one. I think it's 8. It's coming out. This is coming out. Smash is got its ultimate version. That's, like the best Smash could ever be, so we're definitely in a good era for fighting games. I think Evo is going to be pretty interesting next year.
Yeah. Well, I think that does it then, right? For our news. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking all about Monochrome Heights. All right, we are back. And this week we are talking about Monochrome Heights, the video game that I am currently developing. So first of all, thank you, David, for, suggesting we talk about this at this stage. It's still in development, so it's not like, maybe we can do another episode when it releases, but like, who knows? I'm going to get into it here. But I just want to say thank you to you for first, and thanks to everybody. Cause there's like, I wouldn't be here making this game if we hadn't done this podcast. If, you know, a lot of the people in the community have helped, like in lots of big and small ways. So, play testing or supporting or giving me ideas, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a really fun game, and it's really fun to just like, I love being friends with artists. You know what I mean? Like people who like create and like have art, right? Because it's really cool to watch their progress over time, right? Like and then when they're your friends, you get to like talk to them about it, like pick their brain and kind of like, oh, you could see a little bit of themselves in the art that they create, right? So I always think that's really fascinating, and yeah, I love seeing this journey that you're on right now, and can't wait for the full game.
Yeah, well, I thought maybe just kind of try to quickly explain that in case somebody's, you know, not been around for a while, but in part due to, you know, this podcast, I decided to, you know, quit my job and learn about video games and try to see if I could break into the video game industry in one way or another. And it's been almost exactly 2 years now, not quite, but since I quit. And I definitely feel like I've learned a lot, and I've been applying for jobs, but I also feel like I came to the point where it's like, I want to make my own game. And I don't know that that's the like smartest thing to do. Right. But like, I think I have the most excitement around, like I've done some freelance work writing for people's games and working on stuff like that. And I'm like, you know what? I think I want to make the game I want to make. But at least as a side alongside jobs, right? Whatever that is. But
now your first foray into the industry, so to speak, was through writing, right? Like, yeah. Well, and I think it was actually one of our guests maybe that you got a gig with originally, right?
Yeah, that's right. So like going back again to the podcast, like we went to PAX South right before the pandemic, the last PAX South. And I went to one of the panels there where there were several writers. And then sometimes people get confused about writing for video games, understandably, because it's, you know, what are you writing? Code or, you know, that sort of thing. But like text for narrative parts of a game or even non-narrative, right? There's text in video games and there's somebody that's got to write it and make sure it's written clearly. And if it's story-based, all that. And there were several people talking about that. And I was like, I never thought about that as a job, you know? I feel like I have a lot of writing background, so that might be the way for me to get involved. And it's a tough gig because like video game jobs are tough, period. But, you know, there's not as many of them. A lot of people sidestep in the video game industry. Like QA is a very normal entry point, and then you go do whatever else, that kind of stuff. So it's harder to break in on that. But I found some freelance jobs, including, for Totally Baseball from JJ Castillo, who came on our podcast. That's how I met him.
Yeah.
Again, thanks to you.
Viewer Ready,
too.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was great to have him on and learn some about the VR companies, like the kind of games they make. And then you like made like player profiles for that game, right?
Yeah, just as an example of text games might need, like baseball, you know, they want to have kind of funny little background bios for these players and them to have funny names or you know, names that fit their team or whatever. That kind of thing. Yeah. Doing freelance writing for games, a lot of writing puns and a lot of writing, like
probably a lot of alliteration, I imagine. Yeah.
It's like all those tricks, like, you know, rhyming words, stuff like that. But anyway, at some point, you know, simultaneously with that, I was trying to learn Unity. I had kind of dabbled in it before because I had this idea a long time ago as well about programming and working in games, but I finally made the push. Did a bunch of game jams, got the confidence to make a bigger game, and took one of those game jams ideas. So shout out to Bent Neatly and Eber Alegria, who helped me in the game jam version of Monochrome Heights. And then now working on this commercial release for this game.
Would you recommend to people that are trying to get into game design or learning programming that like doing game jams is a good way to do it? Like even if you have no experience?
It's 100% the recommendation I would make.
Yeah.
Like there's just no reason not to or to do that. You go over to itch.io and they have like on the top left, I think it's the top left. I'm not looking at it in front of me, right? But one of their main tabs is game jams. And there are literally at least a dozen happening right now. It probably more than that. And probably, if you looked at the next month, 100 or something. I mean, I might be overestimating. I might not be. But point is there's so many different kinds and types. And a lot of them have communities like Discords where you could hop on and say, hey, I want to help out. Or join a team or start a team, or you know what I mean? And maybe that one doesn't work out, or maybe it does. It's going to be a lot of failure. But that's part of it. You might not finish a game for a game jam, but you might. And either way, you're going to like level up a little bit. Right.
Right. And because I mean, I feel like to me, what's always stopped me is just like that. It just seems so monolithic, like learning code and learning how to program and learning an entire new thing. Like, what are like some skills or like tips you might have for like making that a little bit more manageable? Like as you're learning, like, would you say Unity is a good first?
No,
I mean,
the maker of Jellycar, the game Jellycar.
No,
you don't know the Jellycar? It was like a popular Flash game first, I think. There's been 4 of them. You drive in this sort of really bouncy, physicsy car. Anyway, it's pretty popular, like casual game. He's made a new one recently, but anyway, he had a really great advice for this, which is find the simplest engine that you can. Like for me, coming at it from a writer's perspective, there's an engine called Twine where you can make text games that's really easy, but has some very bare bones programming, kind of linking passages to each other so that, if you click
node
on
based programming kind of.
It's really kind of HTML-y. And then there's stuff like God, why can't think of the name of it? Is it Bitly? I think maybe is the name of it.
Maybe
there's Pico 8.
Like Scratch. Yeah.
It's not Bitly. Bitly is the
URL shortener.
Yeah. There's Pico 8. There's there's a bunch of really small, not like, you're not going to make an open world 3D game. I mean, honestly, get that out of your head unless you're rich and or like have experience, right? Like, you can make a part of that game. You could make the part where you walk around in a town or something. You know what I mean?
You make a great plateau, maybe.
Yeah. Like start small is the other thing, right? Like, if you want to make some game, take like a tiny aspect of it and do that in a game jam, or do that as like a little prototype. But point being, the Jellycar guy says, like, start with the easiest engine that fits you, whether, whatever that is. There's a bunch out there. And then once you get comfortable in that, push yourself. And I think that's what really worked for me, because I've been kind of dabbling in coding my whole life, and I had messed around in Unity, and I actually hit a wall. I think this was January of 2022, where I said, I don't know if I can do this. Like I was on I went on a nature walk by myself, and I was like, I don't know if I can make my own game. Like I just can't do it. And I was like, maybe I just hire somebody, or maybe I just give up, and then I decided to make a better game, to do a game jam and make a game in Twine, which I knew how to do a little bit, but make a little more complicated one. Right. And so it's just those little baby steps.
Right. Was that the frog game?
No, that's like I made a purely text game. I don't even know if I shared about Pizza Delivery Guy. It's on my itch.
I don't think I ever played it. Yeah,
it's on my itch page. It's just about like, I followed the Game Jams theme, which was pizza and like magical realism. So it's about some pizza place in the 1980s that doesn't matter. But the point is, I made it, I did it, and I was like, that was great. I finished something. So I'm going to make a game in Unity, and I did a visual novel game jam. There's a bunch of really great visual novel communities, and that's actually another one. There's something called RenPy, which is another engine for making visual novels that I think is pretty user-friendly. I've not used it myself, but it uses Python, which is a pretty friendly language to beginners. Anyway, visual novel, real easy, right? Like you just slap a graphic, you have some text. I mean, still hard. I think that's something people maybe don't know how hard simple things are sometimes.
I mean, I know PowerPoint, Pat.
Yeah, right. Like I can make a visual novel in PowerPoint.
I made a TI-83 game back in the day. Yeah,
nice.
like a text-based game. And then my buddy Tay just fucked it up. He fucked up the code. He like took it, like fucked up the code as like a bit, and then it was like beyond repair. Yeah.
But honestly, text-based games are a great place to start because you're like, it's almost just like focus on one aspect, focus on a little bit of coding to make text go to different text and stuff. Right. So yeah. And then I made the frog, then I made the Monochrome Heights after that. Cause I was like, okay, I think after learning Unity, I used Unity to make a visual novel. Probably don't recommend that to somebody. If you really want to make a visual novel, probably check out RenPy. But if you want to learn Unity, you could make a visual novel in it, right? To force yourself to use the tool.
Feet a little wet.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And I got comfortable with it. And then it's like, I want to make a platformer game. Because that's what I want to make. Like I like 2D games. And also it's easier than 3D. So I made the not so great version of Monochrome Heights. You know, it's super floaty and challenging, like way too hard and all that. But I learned a lot doing it.
Still had the kind of core mechanics.
Yes, the core mechanics were there.
Yeah.
And then I did a couple more game jams, and I decided I'm done with game jams for a while because I think they're addictive in a way because you finish something.
Right.
Or you just don't finish something, but I was lucky and successful that I managed to finish a game in all of them. But like, I think at some point it's kind of like telling yourself you're going to write a novel and then you just write a bunch of short stories. And you know what I mean? Like, it's like, you're exercising the muscle, but you're not actually you know what I mean? Making a game that lasts 10 minutes, that's like this big of a Unity project, you know, is one thing versus like something that's bigger. And so I was like, I'm going to do it. And that's how I got to this stage. I started about a year ago. I started messing around with it. And then I kind of took a break to finish a game jam or two. And then the summer was hard. But I did some design work in the summer. So I would say it's been roughly a year of working on it. On and off. It's been a little over that if you count the game jam.
If you had to guess, how long do you think you have left in development?
Oh my God.
Is that even possible to say?
So like as inexperienced as I am, which I had just like full disclosure, right? This is my first attempt at making, like one of the things I've learned is that and I've thought about is like, you don't know when you're new, right? And that's how you make mistakes. I'm hoping it will take no more than 6 months.
Right.
I would really love to be done with this by the end of the year because I want to make more games, right? It's that tricky thing if this is going to be a commercial release, I want it to be polished and be good. But at the same time, I want it to finish it, right? And I mean, that's true of any artistic or any...
Yeah, you can work on something forever. Yeah.
Right, you can just keep our own worst critics.
Yeah.
Because it could always be better, right? But...
I mean, that's what they did with Tears of the Kingdom.
6 years. But like at the same time, like I don't need
They also were getting paid though. Yeah. And they had a team of like a couple hundred people.
Yeah, and a big budget. But I also want to like get it done and so I can make the next game better. You know what I mean? Right. And that sort of thing. And I actually have ideas about that and I'd be willing to share some of them. I was very inspired by when we had Marcus Horn on from what's it?
Ciactro?
Yeah. Who makes the short...
Super Kiwi 64 and the Tori games, all of which are on the Switch.
He makes short games and he sells them for a small amount of money. And, you know, there is a market for that. And, you know, if you don't know this, you can go and look at websites that scrape data from Steam and get an estimate of how much money has been made from games. And one of the things I've learned in doing indie game market research and stuff and how to do that is go look at similar games or go look at, you know, how much money did these games make and think about that. And he makes money, you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, a lot of my friends that are game devs, like that I know from like Fantastic Arcade and stuff, like if you have like a moderate hit,
right.
It's like, that is good, you know, if you're a one-person team, you know, like, you know, I'm not trying to like,
no, it's not a smart,
I'm not trying to like put people on blast or whatever,
yeah.
But it's like, you know, like the guy who made Antichamber, like he's a friend of mine, you know, and that game was a moderate success, one-man team. He basically made a bunch of money. He like didn't have to do anything else. I mean, obviously there's a lot of risk. There's no guarantee your game's going to be a moderate or even somewhat hit.
Especially your first one, right? Like if you've made a few and you have a following, you could maybe guesstimate it. But what I'm trying to kind of get at is I'm trying to be smart about this and think about it as like a career business and like be a sustainable indie developer.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be spending 6 years making games.
Right.
Unless you're already made millions, you know what I mean? Because I'm thinking about taking a tip from his book after I finish this, using some of the sprites I have for like the characters that are in memories and story beats and stuff like that, and making short games involving them.
Oh, that's cool.
And then I
make a little connected universe.
Exactly. And then
you bundle them together later.
For the deluxe version that you port to consoles.
Brilliant.
That's the plan.
There you go.
Like that's my business plan
idea.
sort of. And so we'll see. I don't know. You don't see how far it gets, but that's why I'm like, I don't want to spend forever on just one game, but also you got to make it good.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm making this game. It's a 2D platformer. The core mechanic is swapping. You're black and white, and David, you played quite a bit of it. I've had you play a few different iterations of it. You streamed it recently. I've got about 20 something levels in the most recent version, which I was calling a beta, and then you called me out on that. You didn't call me out, but you're like, you're calling this a beta? And I thought about it more. I'm like, no, it's more like an alpha too.
Yeah, it feels more like a pre-release, or you know what I mean? Like, not to diminish like what's in there, obviously, but it's like I feel like beta. I feel like in game dev is almost more saved when the game is pretty much feature complete.
Yeah.
And like all the levels are finished and it's like all that's left is polish, right? Like this feels more like a work in progress alpha, right?
Yeah.
But either way, it's got a lot of polish already. And like, the game mechanics and the features already feel really robust and like what I've played, and I don't imagine you'll be making too many changes to that, right?
Right.
Like I know since me and Dylan played it, you've done some like little mechanic shifts or whatever, like you kind of changed the slide jump and everything like that, or added in a slide jump rather, which is cool. But yeah, I mean, I think we should maybe talk a little bit more about like the game itself and kind of like what differentiates it from other platformers.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, if I were to elevator pitch this thing for you,
please.
It would be kind of like something like Ikaruga meets Mega Man.
Yep.
Meets, some sort of vertically oriented game, like say like an Ice Climbers or something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably not a great example, but it's very vertically oriented in that the stages go up, like you start at the bottom and work your way up to a goal at the top. And you're kind of, switchbacking back and forth across the stage as you go up. But then it has that Ikaruga mechanic, which if you're not familiar with Ikaruga, it's a top-down shoot 'em up where you can change the color of your ship and you can pass through, you can pass through bullets that are the same color as you. But if they're a different color than you, then you hit them. It's kind of the same in this, or it's similar in this, to where you can land on platforms that you're the same color as, but if you're a different color, you pass right through them, right? And so that is such a great idea for the central conceit of the game. And then from there, obviously, you have a lot of different mechanics that you've been throwing in throughout this to make the platforming more challenging. And yeah, it's a really fun, like decently tough platformer, like I think especially there's like a bit of a learning curve on this game, but it's like once you get the flow of the controls and you start to get into the rhythm of it, then it really starts to unlock and you get better as you kind of understand the mechanics more, right?
Yeah. And I think to that point, I definitely am aiming for it to be a hard game, and not like ideally, right? Not like frustrating hard in the way that like unpredictable or just super unfair, like maybe you might think about early games, but like think about like Celeste or Super Meat Boy or something like that.
Right.
That
tough,
sort of
tough
genre.
As nails platformers.
Exactly.
I believe is what they're called.
Tough as nails platformer. And partly because I think again in my research and just understanding now, like if your goal is to make the next Pokemon game or whatever, good luck. You know what I mean? Like there's already Pokemon. Like if you're like, I want everyone to like this game. you want to, it's better to like have a small market, and my sort of like that you can be up higher in, right? And my sort of thinking on that is the sort of speed running Mario Kaizo tough as nails platformer.
I mean, that's people. We were talking about like Pico 8 earlier, and Celeste. Celeste started as a Pico 8 game originally. And I know also Matty Thorson, who is the creator of Celeste and Towerfall and the upcoming, I forget what their new game is that's coming up.
Earth's, or I don't even remember. Yeah,
something like that. It looks great. It's like more of a Metroidvania, right. but they got their start doing Super Mario World ROM hacks.
Yeah.
And so it's like getting into that Kaizo stuff and getting into the ROM hacking community and like learning tough games really is kind of what cut their teeth on game dev, right? And so that's cool that you've kind of followed a bit of a similar journey there, or at least we're inspired by those kinds of games.
Yeah, and it's also kind of what I like. All right, like I mean, the other part of it is make something you like, and I like 2D platformers, and I don't expect to make the best one out there, but hopefully I can make something that I enjoy playing, and then that's the best I can do, right? And then
if I ever made a game, it would not be a farming sim. Right. I'll tell you that much. Or something with like a bunch of item management. Like that's not like what I particularly find fun. So I'd probably make something that's more to my interest as well.
Yeah, and if you tried to make that. It's just a bad idea, right? It's like trying to follow a market trend rather than follow your passion or something.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So,
which is why I made an incest movie.
That's your passion, right?
Yeah. I did a bunch of polling and I'm following the demos. Yeah.
But before we go too far, I just also want to make sure and mention all the people that are helping me. I sometimes get people thinking I'm doing this alone, and in a sense I kind of am, right? But I've definitely hired some people to help me a little bit. I've hired a couple of artists to do the pixel art, a guy named Mark Leo and another person named Jan Konen. I've helped do the art. I've tweaked some of their art and made some of it myself, but it's mostly them. And then my friend Ben Neatley's doing the music. He helped out on the music for honestly all of my game jams pretty much. And then I've got a writer helping me with the story stuff. Her name's Andrea Blythe. And I hired a guy to help me with programming named David Gates. And I might even get somebody from the Switch Headz community helping me out a little bit too with some stuff. Yeah, Tyson Typos and I are talking right now about some art stuff.
I mean, Ty is an incredible artist, man. And he's done a lot of I feel like he would be a great pick for key art or box art for this game.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's a really great idea.
Yeah, because
I hope that works out.
Something else I've learned in
it has to happen now that we've talked about it on the podcast.
All right. Well, it's happening. I just we're in the process of kind of discussing it, but yeah, something else I've learned is you make a pixel art game, you don't put pixel art on your key art. Right. Yeah. I mean, it will be for now because I need a placeholder stuff, but you go look at the Dead Cells, box art, or you go look at the Celeste box art or whatever,
or literally any game from the 90s.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And it's just funny. It's the same game, but people will be drawn to it. And that also reminds me of something I wanted to say here that I am this is the first time I think I'm publicly saying this, but I'm probably going to change the name.
Oh, really?
I'm not going to pitch my names right now because I'm not sold on any of them and I don't want to change it more than once. Right. I think that's a bad idea. But one of the things I've learned is also one of the things you can still do late in development is change, to make marketing better is change the name. And I think I like the name Monochrome Heights. I think it fits it, but I think there could be a better name out there. So I might not, but I probably will. I'm
curious what your name changes.
I will pitch you my front runner at some point off stream. And I would tell pretty much anybody. I just don't want to put it on a podcast. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
I don't want to be this is the new name. And and then in 6 months again, I change it right before release, because that would probably be something I would do before a big thing, which I do want to also mention. Shout out to Summer, frequent guest on the show. Summer pointed me to San Japan. San Japan is a anime convention, but they are now list themselves as an anime and gaming convention. That's happening in early September in San Antonio. and they're giving out free tables to indies that aren't selling anything, that are just demoing their game. So you know who was the first person to sign up? Thanks to Summer, I was the very first, because like you could see the order of people. Like they were like, it comes out on whatever day that you can go do it, and so I went and did it like that morning
immediately.
Yeah, why not? I just commit myself.
When is that, by the way? I'm
it's early September. Summer is going, and I'll be going.
That's in San Antonio.
It's in San Antonio. That's Labor Day. Is it late or no? Is it Memorial Day? I can't remember what that
Memorial Day is coming up.
Yeah, it's I believe it's the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of September.
Gotcha.
Which
so
is
kind
like
of around
to Sunday.
PAX, right? Like PAX West.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it's around there.
Yeah.
If not the same time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I owe them for that. And that's really kind of, the game. I finished that play test that I sent out. I felt really good about that sometime in April, and I've been kind of just sitting on it, doing little minor things, partly because I've been concerned about finances and making money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another reason I was like, if we talk about it now, this will motivate me. But the big thing I'm trying to push for is a good demo for that, as well as just pushing the game along. Because I don't know, you get that dopamine hit when you put out a version and people are like, it's great. And you're like, okay, I'm done, but I'm not. I'm like, not even halfway. But the core stuff is there. The main thing I think I've been kind of stuck on is getting in the story, and that it's requiring a bit of work.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to push through and get it in there. Yeah. So I think those were, a lot of the main things I had in mind to talk about. I don't know if there's.
Yeah, I mean, I've got like questions I could certainly ask about this game.
Yeah, if there's anything.
I'm so curious about the game development process and kind of like what you want to do with it. Like I know you've got a lot of levels planned. I think it's, 60 something levels or 50?
Yeah, I'm not like 100% on this. I have probably spent too much time thinking about it. In fact, because it's kind of like I've realized I need to build and then kind of see where things go. Mm-hmm. But I kind of did that with making 20 something levels. And so now I'm trying to think through putting them together in different ways, but it will probably be somewhere between 40 and 50-ish, give or take.
Okay. Gotcha.
Core levels to the story mode.
Right. Yeah. And I know earlier you had talked a bit about how you're kind of making this game for a more hardcore audience. I'm curious if you have any ideas for like accessibility or because obviously you want to make a game with a core audience in mind, but it's also good to like be able to be played by everybody. Like, do you have that in mind with your game design philosophy? Like, have you given any thought to that?
You've pitched a few ideas to me that I liked. I've definitely thought about it. It's definitely something I can see why is not in a lot of games, making my own game. Like I don't, it's hard enough to design levels, period, right? Like then basically if you're going to say there's going to be an easy mode, you're basically trying to design 2 levels in one, and that's just kind of tricky. I have thought about more checkpoints or fewer checkpoints for hard or something like that. But I think that like, honestly, like, I'm not sure. You pitched a few ideas that I liked, which was like, I think the best thing I've thought about doing is something like in Celeste does, where like, I'll give you maybe a slider for your jump, maybe turn off like slipperiness or something, you know what I mean? Like, or give you a slider for that. These are ideas like I'm not sold on, but
something like a double jump would just break the game.
Yeah,
right?
You pitched the double jump, and I kind of like that idea, but it does also, it's tricky, Like I don't know, maybe you feel differently, but sometimes if there is stuff like that, you might go do it, and then once you do it, it's hard to go back or something like that.
Or it doesn't give you an opportunity to actually learn the game conceits if you could just cheese the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of something with Tears of the Kingdom that is like I've heard is like kind of a bit, the people that aren't as high on it have cited that as part of the reason why they don't love the game as much, is that it's like
the difficulty.
There's just so many opportunities to cheese the game that you don't really learn how to play it a lot of the time. I think that is just kind of part of the nature of the game, and that's something I love about it, right? But I could see, you know, a similar argument being made to something like that, like adding in an extra ability, you know, as sort of an accessibility option, right? So
like, if, you know, I don't know, Microsoft's next Gears of War game doesn't have a colorblind mode, then fuck them. But if an indie game doesn't, I kind of get it. You know what I mean? Like if somebody's first commercial release doesn't, like, it's a lot of work to do all that stuff. To just finish anything is a lot of work. So
totally.
I was
just curious about that. I'm certainly not putting you on blast about it, or I'm certainly not, you know, trying to, you know, shame you.
No,
I was just curious, you know, if that's something that crosses your mind.
It has, and it's kind of, I don't want to say plagued me, but I've definitely woken up in the middle of the night and like scrawled on a note next to my bed, like, more checkpoints for easy mode. You know what I mean? Like, thinking that was some brilliant idea or something, and then being like, but wait, where would they be? And how would, you know what I mean? How would that, like, I'd have to go through each level and pick spots and remove things. Right. And I think that's also another reason that, you know, the second game will be better, right? Because you learn a lot of lessons as you're doing this, to be like, okay, there is a lot of value in doing a lot of design work up front.
Sure. So well, then it's also like, when you're talking about saving that stuff for a sequel, it's like, I think the question is like, well, if you thought of it, just add it to your game. But that's like, that means starting over in a lot of ways. And it's like undoing a lot of work. And it's almost better to just save that stuff for whatever your next thing is, so you can incorporate it rather than just continually restarting the same game over and over every time you come up with a new idea. Right.
Yeah. And I also have a sort of personal feeling about like difficult games. Like I think there should be accessibility modes and easy modes and all that, but also like there are so many media experiences that if something is hard and that's what it's designed around, and you can't play it, go play a different game. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, or go watch a let's play of it or something.
Same with movies, you know, there's like different genres of film. Not everything has to be for everybody.
Yeah, I don't want horror movies to tone it down because I don't like them. You know?
That's a good point. Yeah.
But at the same time, I get it. So I don't know where I'll land on that. These are the kind of things that when you're like, when is this going to be done? I'm like, I'm not sure, because it's how much time and effort do I want to
light a
spend
fire under your ass, Patrick. Yeah.
Because the more time I spend on like tweaking stuff like that, the longer it'll be. And maybe it's better to finish the game. Mm-hmm. And then in the deluxe version have something that's better, like a double jump or what, you know, or think of the solution or whatever. But
yeah. I had another question. Just you were talking, it's kind of based off what we just said. You were talking about level design.
Yeah.
I'd love to pick your brain a little bit on some of your level design philosophy, or like how you go about creating levels. Because I feel like, you know, when we talk about the game personally, you and I, you know, I've been doing a lot of play testing of it and everything like that. And we'll talk back and forth. We never really talk about like how you design levels or like what your approach is. But it's like all the levels like have a really like natural flow to them and like feel good. And I'm wondering like, like, have you read any like level design material, or like kind of what's your approach maybe when you go into it, on the best way to kind of introduce new mechanics and stuff like that without just like tutorializing everything, right?
Yeah, and that's also like I probably will have a little more tutorializing in the actual game, though I've kind of, after watching you and some other people play it, I'm like, I don't know that every mechanic needs painfully long tutorials, because I think some of the work I've done has made it clear. You know what I mean?
I mean, quickly. I think ideally a game will just teach you how to play by just throwing you into it and making it obvious, right? Like, I mean, going back to Mega Man X is like a great classic example of that. Like every single input you need. I think there's a Aaron Hansen video on it or something where he talks about it, about just how every little thing that happens in the first like 3 minutes of the game teaches you all you need to know, basically, right?
Yeah.
But like,
to answer your question,
yeah, please. Yeah.
I did actually do. I have read some books and watched videos and stuff like that, and then I did do what I said should be done, but again, first game where I spent last summer thinking through design, and wrote out a design document for the game. And before I built any of the levels that are in the game, I sat and drew levels digitally, but like by hand, like not in an engine, right? Like I did it in an art program.
Mm.
And I made 20 or so levels that way before I sat down and built one. And then you get into making the game and you realize half of that's not going to work, but the half that is going to work, it's helpful to have thought through it.
It kind of leads you then to, it's like every little mistake is like, oh, okay, well, I'll just move this a little bit closer.
Right.
And then that maybe leads to a new platform that's nearby. Is that kind of like that?
Sometimes though, I'll just open up a fresh Unity scene. Well, not a fresh Unity scene, but like a one that has the defaults things I need in it, and just start building with instinct and just iterate, right? Like just play the shit out of it, right? Like, oh, that jump feels really good. That's staying. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, oh, that's too hard. That's probably the thing I'll sit there and do the most is just die and die and die and die. I'll be like, is this too hard? Let's keep it for now. It's probably too hard, but let me just keep it because it can be done, and it feels good when it's done. And I think that's kind of the essence of this game, actually. So like, which is like, it's hard, but it feels satisfying to do it.
Right. I mean, Mario Maker is a really similar thing as well, where it's like you just drop yourself in and you try out a jump, and if you make it, great, and if you don't, then you're like, okay, I'll scoot it over a hair, right? Or like, or this enemy is on this pattern, and if I jump on them in this way, I can skip this platform, but I didn't know that because I'm not constantly going back and forth and trying it. Are you saying it's a lot like that?
Yeah, I was a big Mario Maker 2 builder, and I think I'm taking that into this a lot, which is like drag and drop, test and test and test, and then build the next segment. I mean, because I kind of try to just build to a checkpoint, and then now the next phase that I'm working on now is you played it on stream and off, and some other people did, and there are a few spots from watching where I'm like, that's ridiculous, Patrick. Like that's doable, but take that out or move that checkpoint. Like,
David's a pro gamer and he's having trouble. So
it is tricky though, because I'll say I watched a friend of my cousin's play for a long time, and I would be like, oh, that jump needs to change. And he's like, no, like I like hard games, and it's like, okay, but I think that jump is too hard. You know what I mean? Like, it's a tricky thing, because when you're making a hard game, what's too hard, right? I don't know.
But it's also, you don't want to front load the difficulty, right? It's got, I mean, that's kind of another question I had for you on the design philosophy is like, when you put the challenges, right? Like, is that, because you have to think kind of in the long term of like a playthrough of the game, like how much are you taking that into account as you're designing each level?
Yeah, I think what is maybe missing in the last build is what you're talking about. Like in an ideal world, right? Like any experience has this pattern of like increasing, we can call it interest curve, right? I think is what sometimes it's called, but we can also call it a difficulty would track with that, where like it's harder and harder, and then it dips down partly because it's you're getting better at it, and partly because you've gotten to a new area, but it's like sort of a giant slope with these little bumps in it, right? Getting harder and harder. And I don't think,
with each world kind of has its own difficulty curve in addition to the overall, right?
And I don't think it quite has that yet, but I am not sure. And that's something I'm trying to think about. And I also think what I've done is built a stage around a mechanic, basically. That's what all the levels are, with a few exceptions of a couple of stages around some mechanics. But, and so I think I can go back and pick the order of the mechanics and tone down or tone up a little bit to fit, or have the combination levels be the challenge, right?
Right.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, maybe we could talk about that a little bit for just anybody who hasn't played it or is still kind of getting their head around what this game is. Like, in addition to the color swapping mechanic and jumping from platform to platform, you've added world kind of specific mechanics. What's some of your thinking there? Like, obviously you want to introduce these and then you're kind of combining them, or like can you maybe explain to people a little bit what your thinking is with adding new mechanics to a platforming game like this?
I think I literally would go play Mario or Donkey Kong or Celeste, or just Google them and be like, what are all the platform types? When I was trying to think of more, like I just instinctively thought of several that would fit. I was kind of resistant to spikes and saws and that sort of thing at first when I was designing the game, and I thought I didn't need them. But now the game kind of centers around them because I actually think it creates a really weird brain fuck to train the player to be like, hey, if you're black, black is safe. And then you start coming across black spikes and black saws, and it's like, it's no longer safe. It's case specific. But back to what you asked, I picked ones I thought would work well. I actually think I have more than I need now. So I'm actually debating cutting one or two, and it's something I wouldn't mind your opinion on at some point, because I've added in a couple since that playtest as well. I have 2 new ones. And so I think I'm at the point where I want to maybe focus areas or worlds around 2 or 3 of them. And then the later worlds are just combinations.
Of all of them.
Of all of them, or just a few of them that haven't been combined yet.
Could you give an example for some
sure.
of your mechanics?
Absolutely. So like there are moving platforms, right? Like your elevator type or just side to side type moving platforms. And there are conveyor belts, for example. And I've thought about my current thinking on those are both kind of movement, non-hazard things. What if I introduce one and then the other and then we combine them or something like that? And I'm not sure that's what I'll do, but for example, right? And or there is like a slippery platform, right? And then there is a breakable platform, right? Maybe I combine those two. So there's world 3 has slippery and then breakable and slippery. And then you go to world 4, which has, 2 new mechanics and then a combo of them. That's kind of what I've been thinking about. And then the later worlds are just all of it together, craziness in different ways. But I'm not sure.
Now, my question is, do you have breakable and slippery as one platform?
Not at this time. I had thought about that early on, but I think from a simplicity, both in programming and in playing it, I had thought about
readability maybe for the player too. It might be a little bit confusing.
It's already such like a tricky, quick read that's hard. That I've definitely tossed out a few ideas along the way that made that more complicated. Like I have a design philosophy that you cannot have black spikes on white ground. It just is too hard, right? Like,
right.
Even though black spikes on white ground wouldn't hurt you, it just fucks with you too much.
You'd stand on it and you just walk right through the white spikes. Yeah.
But it just fucks with people too much. This game already fucks with you a little bit, and it's and so I think similarly, like if there was a moving breakable platform, maybe that'd be fine. But like, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. That's been my experience with your game for sure, is that it's like there are some platformers that I love that like feel good to play, but you don't really have to like think when you're like playing it. You know what I mean? Like I think a great example of that recently is a game Kaze and the Wild Masks.
Oh, right.
Like that's a super fun game, and there are like challenging areas, like it's a very Donkey Kong Country coded game, like they're very clearly inspired by Donkey Kong Country. And the stuff that really breaks your brain are like the bonus rooms or whatever, where there's like a challenge and then you have to get the thing, and like and those are like little challenges, and you have to actually be like, okay, wait, I have to jump at this point, otherwise I'm not gonna be able to blah 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 blah, right? But like the rest of the game is just kind of that you feel it, it's the flow, it's the kind of just like classic timing and whatever. That's a game you could like play while you're watching something on TV or something. I feel like your game is not really like that. It's like you really have to constantly be engaged, right? And then on top of that, you have additional challenges with like the kind of collectible, a certain number of collectibles throughout, where it's like, okay, for a little bit of extra challenge, you can go the extra distance for this, right? But I think there's space for both of those kinds of games, right? And I think
Totally.
like that's something that also sets your game apart quite a bit, is that I feel dumb when I'm playing it. I'm like, oh my God, of course I know this, I learned this, but my brain like can't wrap around it. But then it's like over time, you train your hands to do the thing, you know what I mean? And then it's like, okay, great, I got that down. Now I learned this next mechanic, and then combining them then is that extra challenge, right?
Totally.
But yeah, it's a very exciting process to see it all come together, because I'm really enjoying that whole style of gameplay.
Yeah, I don't like to, not trying to toot my own horn, like there's better games out there, whatever, but like I do think it has.
No, your game is the best game ever made.
I do think it has something kind of interesting with that, with kind of what you're talking about. And I also think about it, I watch people play it, and I'm also like, there's nothing telling you have to go fast, right?
Right.
You could sit there and take your time, but people don't want to. And I think that's the internal struggle of a game like this. It feels good to move quickly. And it doesn't feel good to go slow. And I like that. I'm trying to lean into that, to be like, you could sit there and think about it. And sometimes you have to, but it's more engaging to just go.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I cannot wait for the inevitable speed run mode.
Yeah. That's
give us bronze, silver, and gold medals.
Totally.
That shit would be fun. Yeah,
another
extra
big
challenge
part.
when you beat it. Yeah, totally.
This game is just begging for it. That's definitely coming.
Yeah.
I definitely want there to be a mode where it's once you unlock a level in story mode, you can go and do time attack on it.
Right.
And then probably just because I think I will have them, and I might even design a few around it, a few extra levels for that, at least.
Yeah, it's if you get gold on all of these, you get bonus levels that are
like
super
just some that are just in the challenge mode, because then like that's also something I could push in updates, right? If the game is moderately successful, which is my, I'm not trying to expect anything, but like,
sure,
if I want to spend more time on it, make a few more levels for the time attack mode.
Great stuff. I guess maybe to wrap stuff up.
Yep.
I think what are some of your plans for? I guess, do you have any plans for like further? Because right now you're very much in the game design phase and getting it built, or not design, but you're actually in the development phase of the game. Do you have any plans for marketing, or are you trying to do any sort of fundraising, or do you have any plans for stuff like that?
Yeah, I definitely am open. Like, I have to your question about like, when is it going to be done? And like in this process, I have many times told myself, I'll launch a Kickstarter on X month. And then that X month has rolled around, and I've been like, that's not going to happen. You know what I mean? And so like, I think with
doing a Kickstarter is a lot of work.
Exactly.
You got to take time out to do that.
I've thought about some of that, but I've also come to the conclusion, like, it'll be ready for that when it's ready for that. And if that makes sense, which it might not, depending on, if I could go back to work full time somewhere and have enough money to just finish, you know what I mean? Or if I have more time or less, whatever. But I've been thinking about marketing a lot. I've been taking this, like, I've been finding free and paid marketing indie game resources and just eating them up. And like, it's hard, like this, it's just like, it's a hard thing. I've dropped a few things I've learned from that just kind of early on, like having a smaller target audience, again, not trying to make a game that's for everyone, but trying to have an intended audience in mind. I don't think I've said this yet, but David, you are an example of my intended audience. There are some people that are like, you should not just pick, like I talked about, speedrunning community or something. You should pick somebody, one individual, that like fits your description. That's a male, 30 to 35 or whatever, like
they grew up with these kinds of
exactly.
games.
They grew up playing Mega Man and Mario, because that's very much what this is inspired by, right? That likes tough games. And so David, you're my poster child, or poster, I don't know what the word is there.
I'm your child.
You're my child.
You're my dad. Hey Dad,
David,
it's nice to do a podcast with you.
I am your father. But anyway, the point is, like, I try to think about, like, where does David hang out on the internet? That's the idea, right? Like, where do people who like Kaizo Mario?
Pornhub.
So I'm dumping all my money into Pornhub commercials.
Yeah. Just get Ty to make some really sexy key art. No, but I think honestly that goes like a really long way. You know, a flashy, eye-catching bit of key art. You know, like the Love games, like the thing that caught my eye about those games, because they're very simple pixel art, like in the game, very simple pixel art in those games. And, you know, and it's a tough as nails platformer, and that's something that I enjoy, but it's like the key art and just the title Love was like, rich, caught my eye, and I was like, oh, that looks really cool. And then you click into it and you're like, oh, it's a cool like platformer, you know what I mean? So I think like that goes a really long way,
right? That's why I'm thinking about changing the name too.
Yeah, and so good character design. I personally can't wait until Black and White Guy comes out later this year. That's what you're changing the name to, right?
Exactly. It's a video game. Buy it.
But yeah, anyway, that's cool. Yeah, can't wait to see more, and I can't wait to, maybe we can check in at some point in the future. I do want to ask more. I'm curious about like your process and like story, and like where that comes into play. Maybe we can talk about that in a future episode or whenever the game gets closer to release.
Right. Yeah, I definitely would love to do this like farther down the line, because of that too. Because I'm sure I'll have learned a lot by then. But yeah,
I guess to kind of wrap it up, if anybody is like interested in the game, like where can they follow like game development updates? Are you still looking for playtesters, or like are you kind of done with that at the moment? Or where can people follow your process for this?
Absolutely. I think the easiest place for me to say is that over on Boss Rush Network website, which is just go to bossrush.net. Every Friday, I'm posting a short devlog. I might slow that down because it's a lot, actually.
Yeah.
I might slow it down to like twice a month, but I've been doing it once a week. I'm trying to keep them super short. And on each of those, there is a mailing list you can sign up for, which I haven't done a lot with yet, but I'm trying to get geared up to do. I will be having a Steam page. I'm in the process of getting a Steam page, so I would love to say go wish list it on Steam, but I'm not quite there yet.
Right.
But I mean,
we'll make an announcement about that whenever that's available.
Yeah, but I think I'm not currently looking for play testers, though. If you're gung ho, reach out to me. Like, I have been making some tweaks to the version that came out. It's a lot of work to make sure that every level is, that I haven't fucked something up, because so like I'm not trying to always push an update every time I do something, but I have made some, I think, important changes to the slide and some of the movement that was causing the slide to be frustrating.
You have my attention.
It's the turn speed. It's the turn speed. I figured it out. So I've been working on that a little bit in the background, but to answer your question, Boss Rush Network, I do a little blog and it has a mailing list update. Definitely, or send me a note. And if you really want to check out, I'll give you a link to the last build, because I would.
Great.
Why not? I'm not trying to be secretive about this. I'm not Nintendo, right? Like, the more people that care about it is great.
If somebody plays an early build of your game, that means they're not going to buy it.
Right. Something I've learned that I don't know that I will do, because it seems like a lot of work, is that, there are now things that scrape Steam for piracy, right? They buy games and then immediately seek refunds and then go drop them on pirate. But developers have started, and I've seen multiple developers suggest you do this. Make a build of your game that has a glitch that stops players after an hour or whatever amount of time. It says, hey, you're playing the pirated version. And then you beat those bots by going and uploading it on Pirate Bay and all the places when you release your game.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Or you just
we could do a whole episode on that, like creative anti-piracy stuff.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of history of that in video games.
Because I'll see devs that like post screenshots of their Discord where somebody's like, hey, there's a glitch at this point. And they're like, no, there's not. Unless you're playing the pirated version. And they'll be like, oh. I am.
Like how Reggie called out that Tears of the Kingdom guy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that was just an aside. Thanks. Thanks, David, for talking to me about this. And
yeah, of course. Yeah, again, I can't wait to play the full game, man. I'm a bated breath over here.
So many people in the Switch Headz community that have helped me along this way, and probably will more. So I'm if you're out there and you tipped me off about this or that, or play tested it. Like Jordan has done a lot of play testing for me. Summer tipped me off to San Japan. I'm sure I'm leaving important people out, people who helped with checking out my Game Jam games and giving me feedback and stuff. So like Kyle and others. So thanks everybody.
Thank your wife and kids.
Yes. And good thanks to God. And it's an award ceremony speech.
Yeah. And God. Yeah. Anyway.
But I think that does it then. Thanks. And yeah, we'll take another short break. And when we come back, we'll talk about the games we've been playing recently. Man, I have tried to play other games other than Tears of the Kingdom. I've literally told myself, oh, I want to go play this, but I haven't. It's so good. And then I've also played it when I shouldn't be playing it, late at night, or when I'm like, I'll just take a 10-minute break here and play it. And then an hour later, I don't even know what I've done in the game. You know what I mean?
Dude, for real. I just did like a really long bit of just trying to do this one cave that I kept dying in over and over again. That gave me nothing. It gave me like 10 arrows. You know what I mean? But I felt so good when I finished it, you know? Like, I don't know. I'll play this game and like 4 hours go by and I'm like, holy shit.
I'm also like dedicated to getting every treasure chest in every shrine that I go in and finding it and getting it. And then exactly, sometimes it'll just be 10 arrows. You know, be like, fuck.
Yeah, that's fine though. It's like,
yeah, but I did it.
You get the little sound. Yeah.
Man, it's so good. Like,
yeah,
I think it's better than Breath of the Wild. There's no doubt. Like, obviously, I think Breath of the Wild has an aesthetic, like you said, that's different and like feels a little different. But man, it's improved. I mean, it has the same thing as Breath of the Wild, which we were just discussing, where you like set out to be like, I'm going to go to this stable to do this mission, and then you run into this person who sends you over there, and then you see a hill, and then you fly to the sky because what's above that? Or you know, it's so much fun to just get lost in this game, and all the new stuff. I haven't.
Have you done any of the story yet, or are you still just fucking around?
Yeah, like I don't know how much to reveal or not reveal at this point still, but like I have really only done one of the temples.
Which one did you do?
Did the Wind Temple.
Okay, that's the Rito one.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, that's the one that I've done as well.
Also, a really weird way to be playing this game that I don't think very many people are, that I'm doing, is I am playing it by myself. And then my son has a save, and I am often sitting there watching and/or playing with him.
Right.
So everything, I haven't done everything twice, but I've done many things twice. You know, because sometimes the tougher battles he'll want me to do, like the boss battles or whatever.
Yeah.
Or like this or that. And then, so I've also like had this experience where I'm like, have I done that on this file? You know, like,
yeah.
Don't recommend it, but I beat that Wind Temple boss like this the second time.
Yeah. Dude, I actually thought that boss was pretty easy, to be honest.
It was once you figure it out.
If you're strapping wings to your arrows, it gets really easy. That's how I beat it.
Nice.
Yeah,
I was like, think of
I
that.
just stayed. Yeah, I mean, sorry for spoiling too much, but I'm trying to be somewhat vague. But it's like, for me, you know, when you fuse a wing from a like Keese or any of the flying enemies to your arrow, it flies way farther. So I would just stay back and just shoot really far. And I would just, you know, you're just
I also found
firing arrows constantly.
Second time fighting that boss, that if you fuse fire items, it insta kills its ice. So
very interesting.
That also, which I did not do the first time around, and it's like second time I beat it like that.
Man, I think though, like I liked that temple. I actually found that temple to be a little not that fun. I thought it was kind of just like a lot of. I got kind of frustrated, like trying to find the things that you have to do in order to open up the boss area, right? Yep. And so, and it felt a little short to me, to be honest. Everybody was like, "Yeah, the dungeons are like way better." I was like, "These kind of still feel like Varuda or whatever to me." You know what I mean? It was very similar to the Breath of the Wild stuff, in my opinion. But like, for what I loved about that temple was getting there. You know what I mean? The whole
that
process.
Was part of it. It has to be considered part of it, because that was
like when you're there with the little bird guy and he's like leading you along. I was like, man, this is so
almost
like
harder.
moody and it's harder and it was creative and I had to like really use my brain in order. It was just like amazing platforming, and it's like platforming in my Zelda. Like, this is so great. Like, I loved it. And there's a lot of really cool platforming stuff in this game that like even surpasses the stuff that was in Breath of the Wild, right? I'm really enjoying it as well. Man, what a great time to be alive. I keep saying that.
I feel like we could talk about it forever. Like, the world and the people and the stuff that's happening also, and that's where maybe having played Breath of the Wild makes it a little better too, because but I don't think it's necessary, but like the evolution of all the towns and the characters and seeing
I've barely been to any towns. Like I just made it to Kakariko for the first time.
Yeah.
And I haven't been to Hateno.
Oh man.
Any of the fishing villages
it's got a lot of fun stuff going on, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff. And I keep like being like, oh, I'll go here. And then I do something else. And I like I still need to unlock like the Gazette stuff, like with the newspaper. I haven't done any of that yet.
Oh, that's fun stuff too. Those are really rewarding, like short side missions.
I just keep getting distracted by like the depths and just like all this.
Yeah.
And I want more batteries, you know, so I'm constantly going back into the depths to like farm shit. But yeah, amazing game, man.
So much you can do.
I mean, we kind of both just were talking about it here, but I think I did play one other game this week. I started Firmament. I didn't have a ton of time to play it. I actually got stuck on the first puzzle.
Too hard.
But it's also I think that there have been a lot of people that have been complaining. I think the game's like a little buggy on launch, and I know they're putting out a patch here shortly. So I might even just like take my time a little bit. I mean, I've got another huge game to play that's got a lot of my attention right now. So I might I bought the game. I'm definitely playing it right now. I'm going to play it soon, probably before the end of the month, or, certainly when I'm recovering from my surgery. That'll probably be a big one that I play.
Are you playing it on Steam Deck?
Yeah, I'm playing it on my Steam Deck. Which it runs great. Yeah. It runs great on the Steam Deck. It's running 60 FPS. It's the graphics look amazing. I've got gyro controls turned on and everything because it's kind of made for VR. So I think gyro is really good for games that expect you to look around a lot and be observational, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm doing a lot of that. And it's a great game. And just congrats to Cyan for putting out a new game. Can't wait for their next one. It's a shorter experience. I think a lot of people are beating the game in about 10 hours. So I'm excited for that as well. It's not just like a huge chunky game, so that's fun. And a game that really breaks your brain and has a lot of puzzles. Like you could spend a lot of time just like doing stupid shit over and over again without realizing what the solution
10 hours if you're not if you're used to these type of games, maybe or something. Yeah.
But anyway, that's basically what I've been playing. That a little bit of Picross here and there. Played some Smash last night with some friends. That was fun. But yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. Well, that does it then for our episode. Thanks, to everybody for listening to me talk about my game. I appreciate it. Thanks to MilkyWay.co for doing our website. Thanks to Corduroy for doing our music. If you're looking for me, Patrick, online, I am PDYX.
I'm pretty much everywhere on the internet at Monolith Fiji. And if you'd like to find our show on social media, we are at Switch Headz on Twitter, at Super Switch Headz on Instagram and Facebook. We got a website, switchheadz.com. And then we've got a Facebook group and a Discord. Please join our Discord. We love having people join there. I'm sure we'll be talking a lot more about Monochrome Heights and Patrick's game dev journey in there as well. So feel free to join us in there. And and that's about it. Thanks everybody for your patience over this next month. There might be a couple more episodes that are just me and Patrick, maybe a couple more specials as I'm kind of going in and out of appointments and funerals and surgeries and shit like that. So be patient with us. But thank you so much to everybody who's stuck around throughout all this time. We got lots of great episodes coming up soon. We got a lot of really cool topics actually that we're going to be hitting over the course of the next couple months. So I'm excited about that. And in the meantime, gang, you know the drill. Stay safe out there. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to one another. Buy Monochrome Heights. It's available now on Steam Deck. No, I'm just kidding. But other than that, gang, we love you very much. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.